Hello, it's me, and it's the latest episode of Built from Scratch, the first one that I'm doing properly in the sense of I'm just going to be talking about literally what I did yesterday and nothing more. So that's 1 out of 10 exciting. So what I did yesterday was I started out by thinking that I wanted to get a list of titles together for these videos and podcasts. And to try and in fact get a list put together that will last for a good period of time. Just so that when I'm making and processing these in the future, I won't have to delve into that process. I'll literally just be able to look at a spreadsheet of relevant suggestions, do a quick search for what I think is the best one for that particular episode, and then just get on with it. So I went into Ahrefs, which is the paid SEO platform that I use, and it has a keyword research tool built into it. And got distracted because I had a quick look at the site and found that there were a whole bunch of 409 conflict errors showing, which were in relation to every link in the site to the contact page. I had to Google it because I've never come across a 409 error before. I was aware of the type of code that is. I forget the proper name for them now, but it's the same thing as if you get a 404 error for a page that can't be found. So I read up on it a bit, and a 409 is something to do with the idea that if your browser was expecting to see the page, I don't know, actually, you know what, I don't know this well enough to really explain it. Essentially, if it's expecting to see something there but something different to what it's actually seeing, I think is a very kind of rubbish way of explaining what a 409 is. So I found an article by Look, actually, talking about what I think might be the solution. I say by luck because there were quite a few articles talking about 409 conflicts, but they were mostly forums and user-generated support documents in which people were really not nailing the issue. But I found this one where there was a fairly informative article, although again the article itself didn't actually come to a good conclusion about how to handle the problem. But then halfway down the numerous comments, there was someone who said something that struck me as probably being correct, and it was essentially that it was to do with the use of the word contact in a page. If that page has got a contact form on it, I think that was a necessary part of the problem. And what was definitely a necessary part of the problem is that you have to be using Bluehost or HostGator hosting. They are both owned by the same company and therefore presumably work on pretty much the same code. And I am a Bluehost user, which may have to change in the future. I'm aware that they are flawed. And this highlighted one of the ways in which they are, because in the various articles that I read, there were people talking about dealing with Bluehost support over this issue and not getting very far with them. However, the suggestion made by this commenter was one that could be put into practice without having to deal with Bluehost support, which is essentially that you get rid of the word contact from the page. The reason this was happening is something to do with Bluehost's spam suppression, that they don't want that word. They've added that word to a blacklist, I think, in short, which kind of seems crazy. I mean, I'm all for spam suppression, but if part of the algorithm for achieving it is to not allow you to write the word contact on your contact page, that is a problem. Because I actually spent some time searching for suitable synonyms for contact, and it's kind of really difficult. Anyway, I think what I changed it to was the Get in Touch page. So I've changed that, and oh yes, in fact, bearing in mind that there were links to the Contact Us page on every page in the site, I didn't want to go through and manually do it, so I downloaded a plugin called Better Search Replace, which is essentially like a Word document find and replace type functionality, but it goes across your whole WordPress website. It goes into the database, finds everything and changes it. So that looked like a quick way of doing this, but it is a little bit scary to use something like that, given that, you know, unlike a Word document, you can't then just visually check it and manually change any incorrect edits, unless you're a terribly competent database administrator, which I'm certainly not. No, don't worry, I'll call her back. So before I used it, I installed another plugin that I've used before called Updraft, which allows you to back up your entire website, and to do so for free. It's got various paid features that you can have if you want, but the basic functionality allows you to completely save your website for free. So that was good to use because I already knew how to do it, and then I used Better Search Replace to change all those links from Contact Us to Get in Touch or whatever it was, and that worked really easily and quickly and simply, which is nice, because one of the things with using WordPress is, even if you're a semi-knowledgeable user of it, because it's not just sort of completely superficial plug and play, you often come across little quirks and things that you need to iron out before you can use stuff in it. But this worked really easily, so that was good. So that's hopefully sorted now. Ahrefs only crawls your site occasionally, just like Google in real life. So I haven't been able to see yet if it's worked, but I suspect it will have. So that was that solved. Right, moving on. I then went back to this idea of getting the list of titles for this media output. I used Ahrefs therefore, and you can tell Ahrefs which search engine you want to see results for. So you can go for Google, but it's got other options, including YouTube. I've seen people refer to YouTube as a search engine before. Certainly when I was working in SEO agencies, people would say that occasionally. It's not technically correct. YouTube is clearly a platform for watching videos, but it does have a search engine within it, and it's a very well used one, and it's obviously a very big site. So the using it as a resource brings considerable value with it, especially if you are going to be creating videos, which is the primary output being created here. So I thought that was a sensible place to go for a list of keywords. So I put into the Ahrefs keyword research tool the phrase "how to business," wondering if that will create good results or not. Clearly it may not have. It was kind of dependent on their search algorithm being clever enough to give me results that would effectively put a like an asterisk. What's the actual proper name for that? Put a condition between the how-to and the business, which means you can fill this in with anything you want, and it did do that. It came back with a whole load of results, many of which were sensible looking. So that was great. I'm quite impressed with. I like Ahrefs in general, but that was definitely a good display of how useful it can be. The sort of bad news with regards to that was that it actually came back with 19,000 results based on the US version of YouTube, and another 600 for the UK. The plan that I'm signed up to on Ahrefs, which is the cheapest one they do, only allows for the exporting or the viewing of the first 1,000 rows of data on any given report. So that means I could get all of the UK ones, but just 1/19 of the US ones. Whilst 1,600 results is a lot, I'm thinking that once I've got this list, I will be actually searching it before adding a title. So it's not just a case of having a list where you take the top result off and apply it to the video. I want to be able to search through it, and therefore I would have much rather had the 19,500 than just 1,500. But I can't get that. So I spent a bit of time trying to figure out what my options might be. The first thing I did was to go on their chat, on their live chat, and ask if they might consider taking payment for production of a one-off report. They came back and said that's not something we do. It's really frustrating because, you know, the report was being generated. It was only due to the way they, you know, limit their platform according to payments that I couldn't see the results. They were actually there waiting to be used. And also, you know, they could have even got round that clearly if they wanted to and sent me the results manually if they just thought it was worth it. But and I would have been prepared to pay definitely enough to make it worth it for them. The only thing that was stopping us is that obviously businesses, in order to operate efficiently, often choose to not engage in bespoke pieces of work, even if they might pay well, because they actually just want to concentrate on their efficient core functionality. So they weren't engaging with that idea. So I considered temporarily upgrading my plan in order to be able to just generate the list that way, which would have been fine in the sense that you're only tied in for 30 days at a time, so I could upgrade it for 1 month, take the hit on paying for it, and then downgrade it again. Unfortunately, when I went on the pricing page to figure out what plan I would need to get that, it turns out I would actually have to upgrade 2 levels to what they call their advanced plan, which is $399 US a month versus the $99 that I pay at the moment. So I would have been paying $300 essentially for that one report, because I don't think I've got anything else that I would be able to use that temporary upgrade for at the moment. It would have just been for that one report, and $300. I don't think I would have paid that even if there was no other option. It would have just been too much. So I then decided to try using a freelance platform to see if there might be someone out there who has an advanced plan for their normal job and would be prepared to just use it to give me the report. I thought, to be honest, this was quite a good idea. There must surely be a whole bunch of SEOs and related people who have access to it and would quite happily take $50, $60 or whatever I'd be prepared to pay to do what would have been for them about 10 seconds, well no, a couple of minutes of very simple work. So I logged on to a platform that I've used previously called People Per Hour, which in fairness may have been perhaps where I went wrong, because although it's quite a popular platform in the UK, I think it might be the biggest one over here, and I've definitely heard of, for example, Upwork a lot more than this, so maybe I was limiting my chances of success there. But anyway, I went on to People Per Hour, created the task, invited a whole bunch of people to it by searching for keyword research, and quite a lot of people had applied that tag to their profile. So I sent it out to must have been about 30 people, and about 6 or 7 got back to me. They were all Indian, which I don't know if that's, I mean, you know, that's clearly irrelevant in a kind of horrible racist way. I certainly have no problem with using Indian people to do jobs, but none of them seemed to grasp what I was asking for, or if they did, they didn't care. And essentially they all offered to do something that was not what I was talking about. They all asked for the URL of the website, which was not required. All they actually needed was the search phrases, and none of them offered a price. And basically they ignored what I'd said and just tried to offer me their sort of standard service. So that was really frustrating, and I didn't push it any further. It's now nearly 24 hours later, and I've not had responses from anyone else on there, so that didn't work. The next thing was, I spent some time reading about how Ahrefs gets its data, in the hope that there might turn out to be a free resource or a cheap resource out there that would achieve the same thing that I could sign up to just to get this one search done. But that was actually quite an interesting read. I spent quite a long time on that, longer than I should have, learning all about clickstream data, and how it has in fact been limited recently, and the problems that's caused, and how some providers of keyword research tools have got round it. Terribly interesting, but probably not what I should be spending time on at the moment. And anyway, drew the conclusion that there aren't any free or cheap tools out there that are going to have anything like the same kind of data as Ahrefs. In fact, I ended up reading part of a article by Backlinko, I think so, Brian Dean's website, where they compared the output of a whole load of paid keyword research tools. No, sorry, not keyword research tools. I think it was just SEO platforms in general, although certainly keyword research was quite a large part of what they looked at. And Ahrefs came out, I think it was literally the best across most industries, in terms of the size of the lists of keywords that they would spit out. Which of course, size isn't everything. They could just be lists of complete garbage, but I think they look like good results too. So I think it is probably the way to go. But there's no alternative there. So then I considered asking people who I know that work in SEO, but it's been a while since I worked in an agency, and I haven't actually stayed in touch with anyone, so it would have been getting in touch with people to ask them to do me a favour, which would have been a bit cringy, I think. So by the time I'd finished all that, it was half a day gone, if not more, and I was stuck for a way to actually solve this problem. So I kind of sat back and reconsidered it, and decided that the 1,000 rows of the US data would actually be enough. Clearly it is loads. It's just I was sort of greedy for an even longer list. So I sat and I kind of manually reviewed those 1,000 results to see if they would do the job, and came to the conclusion that actually, by the time I get down to the 1,000th result, if you order them by volume of searches, the phrases are so esoteric or outright weird, I don't really have any use for them. And if I wanted to get more results, it would probably be actually a case of using a different seed phrase rather than just delving deeper into that list. At which point I suddenly realised I had pretty much wasted half a day, because had I just looked at that list at the start of the day, I would have drawn that conclusion without doing all that research. But that's the thing about setting up a new business, especially when there are multiple processes that you're sort of making up. You are going to you're going to spend quite a lot of time on this sort of stuff, and it's okay as long as it was sort of necessary and you come to a good end of the process that leaves you with some kind of useful way of going forward, it's sort of worth it. The only bad thing is that I do have a limited runway to get this off the ground, and therefore I don't want to spend too much time doing research that goes into a kind of dead end or prove to be a bit unnecessary, because it would be terribly frustrating to just run out of time with only sort of half a project done. So I then downloaded those lists, so I had roughly 1,600 results, and I decided to spend the rest of the day ordering and filtering them. So I had 4 categories essentially. Oh, well, first of all, I deduplicated the list. Obviously there were quite a few duplications between the US results for that phrase and the UK results for the exact same phrase. In fact, one thing that I found weird about the results is getting 19,000 from the US and just 600 from the UK didn't seem right. Clearly the US has about 6 times the population, but that doesn't mean you're going to get 6 times as many results. It just means the volume for those results is going to be about 6 times as much. In terms of the actual sizes of the lists, I would have expected them to be very similar, maybe sort of like 10% less for the UK, and even that would be accounted for in the super long tails where people are putting in less really weird stuff that like literally 1 or 2 people in the States do and no one does in the UK due to the lesser number of people. So there's something a bit weird going on there, which must be to do with Ahrefs just not using all the data that's available from the UK, or not being able to get hold of it or something. But it doesn't really matter. They were still good results anyway. So I deduplicated them and then literally went through the whole rest of the list. So it was an incredibly boring job that took probably about 3 hours altogether of reading every single one of those results and placing it in a category of usefulness, essentially. Category 1 being I'm already at a point where I could talk about that title. The second category being I can't at the moment, but I'm pretty confident I will be able to and will want to in the future. Category 3, I suspect I won't ever want to use this, but it's worth holding on to. And category 4, I'm definitely never using this, so we may as well just delete. So that took time and was very boring, but that definitely needed doing. And so to wrap this up, what I'm saying is I'm now going to be applying one of those titles to every video and podcast that I make. They are kind of keyword driven, but they're fairly relevant. Especially since I am going to be doing a quick search, I think, actually, contrary to what I said earlier. I think I am going to do a new search in Ahrefs each day based on what I've been working on, just to see if I can find one brilliant, particularly relevant phrase with the right kind of level of competitiveness. But if I can't do that, I'll be taking something off this list. And therefore, in order to make sure there is a fit between the title and the content, I might slightly tweak the format of these videos to not just purely be talking about what I did the previous day, but to also address the title of the video. Maybe. Only where necessary, only where there needs to be a little bit of a bridge between the title and the rest of the content, but we'll see about that. Okay, that is the end of yesterday. On with today, which is going to be... Oh, you know what? I think I've already said this before, and I must train myself to not do it. I'm not going to talk about what I'm doing later, because I'm going to be talking about that in the next video. Okay, see ya.